I'm having a bad hair day. I really shouldn't have my face on here, but oh well. Okay. Yeah, bad hair day. Really bad hair day. That's right. So here we go. We're going to do sighting. How to start your still life. You want to set it up in a basic still life of simple objects, and I just happen to have some simple objects that I like to use on a regular basis. And we're going to draw it on our space. Now, they don't do this in the class, but I highly recommend it, and I really should bring some in from my studio. But I have viewfinders that are two L shapes made out of cardboard, and you can set yourself up with a view. If you set yourself up with a viewfinder, it gives you a really good idea of how much proportionally it takes. So in my square here that I'm making with my hand, I can see that you can kind of see it in the picture, but I'm cutting off way more in the picture. I should set the picture to what I just saw through my hand so that you can see it. Cropped. Nope, not that one. Need to crop it. Nope, not that one. Oh, come on. Where's the crop? I know it's in here somewhere. Is it under filter? Oh yeah, I gotta add it. Duh. Sorry, I only had 2 cups of coffee today, and I'm really blonde now, see? So, add a crop. And what I'm going to do is crop the right side more. And I'm going to crop the bottom a bit. Maybe a bit more than that. Okay. Now, maybe a little more than that. I just want to get rid of the edge of the paper there. Frick. Okay, 200 done. Whoops, not 2,000. 200. Okay. So that's pretty much how I have it set in my view. I do have more at the bottom than that. But if you look at the view this way, you can see within the square as a composition, it's pretty much cut right down the middle for that square. And this takes up a good 3/4 of the space on the left. And this takes up a good, like, a quarter, the whole lower quadrant. And this is in between. So the first thing you want to do is just kind of look at your still life and all the objects that are in it and get a sense of how much space each thing is taking up. And if you can block it off, if you can square it off so that you can see the objects within the confined relationship space, it's easier to get the proportions correct. All right. The next step you want to do, before I go any further, single light source, very important. You don't want to have multiple shadows. And we don't actually, I thought we did, but we don't, because I'm looking at the sphere and I see only one shadow coming off the sphere. So that's good. There is a reflection of this white surface onto this part of the pyramid because this is a faceted pyramid. I didn't have a cone. I wasn't able to get a cone. So start with a fairly hard pencil, like a 2B, or even an HB if you really must. I don't usually use HBs except to clean my pencil sharpener. But I'm going to use a 4B because I think that's the hardest one I've got. And you want to go at it just very lightly first. So my still life is kind of a square. And like I say, it's within a square format. So keep in mind your format of your page. One of the things that happens as you grow, as you get older and mature and stop playing with crayons and pencils and things, once you can't make something look real, kids will draw and they fill the whole page. So that's a great thing to watch kids do, because they'll take the whole page and they'll like make this will be their page, and they'll make a house, and the house will be right in the middle, right square dab in the middle, and they'll have a tree on one side that'll be like that, and they'll have a sun that takes up the sky like this, right? So they're filling up the whole page. They're taking the whole page as a composition. They'll put a door, and doors always have doorknobs. Look at kids' drawings. They always have doorknobs. And they will put in a window, and the windows always have panes, even though a lot of windows don't have panes anymore. And a chimney, and a lot of people don't have fireplaces. Sometimes they'll put a path. I think even kids that live in the cities do this. It's like it's symbolically embedded in our minds now from all the hundreds of years we've lived in houses. That's what you do. And you'll notice that a kid's composition is really pretty balanced. There's the sun on the side, and this is this side, and they may have persons, they may have people, they may have heads with legs, which is what little kids draw. That's always fun. As you get older, into 5, 6, 7, people will start drawing more specific things. Like girls will draw princesses, usually, not always gender identified, but often girls will draw princesses with big eyelashes and long hair and puffy dresses, and boys will draw bloody eyeballs and race cars. And sometimes it's the opposite, and sometimes they do both. But it just seems to be like my son would draw huge landscapes full of sharks and divers and guns and blood and all this kind of stuff. My daughter did princesses with big bell gowns and stuff. But the thing is that as they try to make it more and more realistic, they stop paying attention to the composition as a whole, and the realism becomes all important. So if you try to draw a square, and this is a problem this is one of the reasons why it's hard to learn drawing, because you have this well-educated left brain that is in control of everything and gets to name everything and is quick on the ball. Left brain always wants to take information and store it. So it's like my famous eye thing that I always do. What's that? It's an eyeball. Does it really look like an eyeball? No, it's an oval with a circle inside of it, but it represents an eyeball, so we think eyeballs. So then people draw a face with those kind of eyeballs, and they're like, but it doesn't look real. I can't make it look real. And they'll draw a nose. I can't make it look real. Well, because there are no lines in nature, and you really don't have an outline around your nose. If you did, you'd look like a clown. So once they can't make something look realistic, they stop drawing, or they figure out. So if you were to draw a cube and you didn't know anything about drawing, and some people in this class don't know anything about drawing, you know a cube has 6 sides. So doesn't it make sense to draw a cube with, I don't know if I can do it wrong. I've been doing it the other way so long. I'll try to do it wrong. Doesn't it make sense to draw a cube? It's got to have 6 sides. So there must be another side here somewhere. I'm missing a side. They try to draw everything, even if they can't see it. So, but drawing is really about seeing, and it's about optical illusion. So we lose the concept of the composition as a whole, and we lose the drive to create, because it's not matching what's in our brain, and we don't know how to make it match what's in our brain or what we see. It doesn't look real. It doesn't look real. Everybody says that. I can't draw it. It doesn't look real. So this is how you learn how to make things look real, is you learn all the little magic tricks. Maybe I wouldn't show you. Maybe I shouldn't show you guys any magic tricks, because then you'd know my secrets. No, I'm kidding. Okay, so I can divide my space pretty much in the middle, and my cone takes up about this much. Keep it light. This is a gesture sketch, okay? This is the gesture sketches you guys were doing last week, and everybody hated them because they're quick, they're sloppy, they're not finished in any way, and you don't want to add to any. It's no real detail. It's just a gesture sketch. It's just an idea of where the objects are. Okay, so do that first. That has to be number 1. I can't see mine very well because my camera's off center. How's that? Okay. So again, you want to do a gesture sketch. I'm really regretting putting that pyramid straight at me. I should have put it to an angle to make it more interesting, but it is what it is. Maybe I'll draw I can move myself around and draw from a different angle. With the ball here and cube here, and you could just draw this cube as this to start to get the gesture in. The next thing is to start refining the placement of the objects. I hope this is what I wrote in the classroom yesterday, 2 days ago when I wrote this up. This is the 4 stages of drawing. First is the gesture. The second is, Josh, do you remember what the second step of drawing is? Is it proportions and sighting? I think it is. Sighting, you do that by holding your pencil out in front of your face with your elbow locked all the time. Always do your elbow locked, because if you bend your elbow, you change the relative size of your object. So we're trying to look for a unit of measure. And the first time I taught this class was only last term, and I was horrified at what people thought was a unit of measure. It didn't make any sense. So my unit of measure is going to be the sphere. Spheres are perfect units of measure, and because they're the same height as they are width, and so they're perfect for units of measure, and they don't really change that much. So I'm going to take my unit of measure, which is my sphere, and I'm going to measure the leading edge of the cube, and I've got 1 3/4. So if I were to put pencil in front of my eye as if the pencil was in front of my eye here on the webcam, even though this is from a different angle. You want to set it so that the tip of your pencil is at the top of the object and your thumb goes to the bottom of the object. And then you take that measure and you just slide it over and you measure the box. And then from this angle, at this resolution, I notice that I think the pencil changes size because it's moving towards and back from the camera, and I can't control that much. So this becomes 1 and approximately 1/2. Oh, and look, it's 2 all the way up to the very top. So that's a good thing to know. Let me see if that works for me from this direction. It always depends on what direction you're looking at it from. So my unit of measure is the ball, the sphere, and I've got 1 3/4 and about another 1/2 to the top. This is the biggest area that people screw up their still life drawings, is how much of the top they actually see. So I'm going to look at this again. Sometimes it's good to back away from it, give it a rest, and then come back and double check your relative proportions. So my unit of measure is my sphere. So I will make that more solid. Now that's my 1 unit. The thing about the unit of measure is you measure it to itself. It's an arbitrary unit that is absolute within its own right. Does that make sense? So this is an absolute spherical unit. And if I did it here, that would be an absolute spherical unit, but I would have to keep my arm at the same distance from my face all the time, and that's impossible to do because we're not that clever. This is an absolute. So if I measure the sphere that I've drawn, and I want to measure it sideways too, because spheres are spherical, they should be completely the same distance from edge to edge in all directions. So if your sphere looks like this, it's not a sphere. It's an ellipse, or a squashed ball, or an egg, or an oblong. So take your unit of measure, and measure your second object. So here's the first. First, I want to measure the bottom, line it up. From this angle, I want to see where it starts. It is pretty much on the flat level, and I think it shows that on the photograph as well. So I know that my cube has to start over here. So I take my unit, and I'll go 1 3/4. So I got it pretty close, about nailed it. But then, didn't I say it was about 1 3/4, and then it was more than that to the top. So let me measure that again. So there's this unit. There's the bottom to the middle-ish, 3/4. And it's a half. It's only a half more past the second mark. So my unit of measure is here. 1 unit of measure. This makes 1. This makes 2. And it's only a half past that. So there's the top of my cube. So then you take that 1 unit of measure. This is the basic unit of measure that you're going to use for everything. And I really recommend, this is 1 basic unit. And you should label your drawings this way, as such. I really recommend taking the smallest item you can comfortably measure as your basic unit. It would be really ridiculous to take this as a basic unit and then try to do fractions of it, because it just hurts the brain. It's not a good idea. Let me see how, okay, so, and it'll change a little bit, which I open and close too. The corner of the box is tangential, which means it touches, or just about touches, or slightly touches the edge of the sphere. And from what I can tell, it's slightly, only slightly above halfway of the sphere. So slightly more than half the sphere is where that ends. Now, how far away from the ball is the sphere is the edge of the block, because that's going to be important to figure as well. So we'll take a spherical measure, 1 unit, turn. But remember to keep your pencil parallel to your eyes. Don't tilt it forward or back. Keep it parallel. It's 1 perfect unit from the edge of the sphere to the edge of the cube. So here's 1 unit, and from the edge of the sphere to the edge of the cube is the second unit. I nailed it. I did. I think I got it on pretty quick. So here is why we do these gesture drawings. This is exactly why, and I don't think they tell you this in any of the lecture materials that I read about it. It's like target practice. You sketch everything out in its whole, in its composition, and then you go back and you check it. And then you make adjustments. You keep doing that and doing that and doing that, and eventually you start to hit the proportions correctly the first time, or near enough. You have to, I check them, I still check them all the time. And I'm usually on, I'm 80% accurate. And I get more accurate the more practice I use. So I'm going to measure now the top of the box. It's the 1 perfect unit to the corner, because it was at the bottom as well. And from that corner to the end, it is not a perfect unit. It's 1 1/4. Okay, so here's my sphere. And oh, I need to measure up first. So I said that was 1 3/4 on the first edge. 1 3/4. And on the back edge, it's 1 1/2. No surprise. 1. It is not. How dare you? My perspective is not off, because I'm working from the actual still life, sir. My boss is giving me a hard time. I know, I should go on to Discord so I can yell at him. The photo is present. It represents it as best as I could take a photo with a stupid cell phone. But that's the problem with the photo. You see, the photo, I'm talking to the other screen because he's on the other screen. The photo is not accurate, and never will be accurate, because photos lie. And this is a perfect example of why photos lie. Don't measure from the photo. Of course, it's not the same on the photo as it is in real life, because that's a photo and it's in a mechanical. No, and the cam's not right either, and I'm not drawing from the webcam either. I just put the webcam there to prove that I'm drawing from life. See? This is my proof positive that I'm drawing from life. And I put the photograph. Yeah, right. I put the photo there so that you can see as close as possible. It's all a lie. Yes, I know it is all a lie. It's as close as possible to what I'm seeing. But don't work from the photo. You should work from your own still life. Everybody should have their own still life set up. And if you want to work from my still life while I'm doing it, that's fine. But it is a lie. And I point that out when there's problems, when things don't match up exactly the way they should. But what I'm doing is really truly measuring my own still life. I photo bash too. Photos suck. I'm not gonna call the photo the truth. Only your eyes can see the truth. Okay, that's 1.5 up on the back. I'm going to carry on up after being so terribly interrupted to measure to the top of the pyramid. So it's about 3.5 to the top of the pyramid. Okay. One. Wait. You screwed me up, Mr. Blumenstein. Okay. Now we've got 1.5, and then beyond that, we've got another 1, and yes. You can join in the go-to meetings so that you can actually yell at me in person. I mean, in real time. I measured up 5. I don't think it's that many high. So, but I was measuring from the back. May not be the best place to do it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now it's like 4. Okay, so that's too much. So let me measure the front edge, the leading edge of the pyramid, which is about 1/4 to 1/3 of the way on a vertical line up from the bottom of the sphere. So that would be about here. And from my viewpoint, which is similar to the camera, but not exactly like the camera, was a little bit of the pyramid edge showing right there. So I'm going to measure that up the side of the pyramid. 1, 2, 3, just under 4. Okay, so we'll go 1, 2, 3, and it's just under 4. So I made my pyramid a little too tall, which I kind of suspected. Now, is that line vertical? You can hold your pencil straight up and down, or hang it even like a plumb line, to see if that line is vertical. It's almost vertical, very slightly to the right, but so slight that most people are not going to be able to see that. Now, I see the back of the pyramid as ending up right about where that original halfway mark. I can double check it. Yep. So I know that this is going to match here. This is going to be here, and this is going to go to here, and it should be pretty darn accurate as far as I can't draw a straight line. Where's my ruler? To save my life. Okay. Now, when you guys do your milestone, mark this here, like I measured this here, and this is going to be 1.5 basic units, and this one was 1 3/4 basic units. This is slightly more than half, and this was 4 7/8 basically, because there's the 4th line. it wasn't 4, it was 3. 3 7/8 approximately basic units. He only popped in to give me a hard time. Now he's gone. Unless he's going to show up over here instead. Oh, lordy, lordy. Okay. Meanwhile, back at the ranch. Sighting. Sphere, my unit of measure, universal unit of measure. I'm going to measure how many spheres out from on the right. 1, about a third. So 1 basic unit. This is why you want to use a small unit, because it's easier than, I mean, you can measure a third. You can pretty much guesstimate a third of something, but if you had to do multiple fractions of things, that would be hard. So just for kicks, I'm going to hold my pencil up and see if the 2 corners of the box are on the same horizontal, and they're not. There's quite a bit of difference. So while this may be here, the one over here is between. It's going to be right about there. And I can check my edge by holding the pencil at an angle to the edge and then dragging the edge down to here. It's often less than you think it is of an angle. You can do that with the top too. Not as accurate in some ways, but it gives you a pretty good idea of how far the angle goes over. All right, what did I say this was? 1 1/3. Okay. Now, I want to measure the far end of the pyramid. One beautiful perfect unit, and one beautiful perfect unit that way too, which means that we're actually seeing more of this darker side of the pyramid than the lighter side because it's a perfect pyramid. Yeah, sure. Oh, he's gone already. Okay, no problem. I saw Brandon there for a second and he left, and he really should come back. I hope he comes back. Well, one perfect unit. Check that again. Yep, one perfect unit from corner to corner. And on the horizontal, that back tip is just barely below. So I got it pretty close. Just barely below the mark. Okay. Now, let's see about this angle here on the pyramid. Okay. Feels like it's steeper than that, but my measurements say it's not. Let's measure across the whole top of the box from corner to corner. 1, 2, which equals the side. 3. Well, it would be this plus this, wouldn't it? It would be a third. 1 1/3, which is what it is. Measure the far side. So anywhere you think you can put in a measure, put in a measure, measure it. That's interesting. This is 1 1/2, like this was 1 1/2. So they're kind of close. And the corner is lower, just like this corner is lower. Now I got to find that back corner. It's about 1 1/2, 2 1/2 from here. So 1, 2.5. So it's here. And how far over this way is it? It's about half of the sphere. So if I put this right here, that corner should be about there. Okay, I've got the height, I've got the distance. So it's like I'm almost like building a grid across my drawing, up and down, back and forth. That doesn't feel right. That doesn't look right to me. So I'm going to check that again. And if you want to use a ruler to make your straight lines, it's totally fine, as long as you've got your measures correct. So from here to here was 2.5. Isn't that funny? This looks so much wider, but it's the same. So from here to here is one basic unit. And that makes from here to here 2 and 1/3, which we have figured out from here. You could add these together and get that same number. All right. So I've measured out, this was 1 unit here. And from here to here, slightly more than 1 unit. So this is just a preliminary sketch. There's no shading. There's only the development of the relationships, the spatial relationships. If you want to add, actually, that's for the next milestone, add in the bottom plane of the table and other elements that are hanging out in your still life. Any questions? That demo only took 15 minutes. No questions? Okay. That was fun. Well, you'll be the only one in the whole 2 classes that gets it perfectly right, because